Ganguza, and I am here on the Real Boss series with my co-host, Tom Dheere. Hey, Tom Dheere, how are you?
Hello, Ann. How are you doing?
Real boss.
Yeah.
Hey, Tom, as a real boss, how's your year going, by the way? It's, we're almost, it's gone by so fast
First quarter
already.
gone.
Yeah, first quarter, and tax season is already come and gone.
Well, it's pretty. I mean, we filed. Now it's just a matter of waiting
filed
for
and I got paid already. So
very
yeah.
nice.
So speaking of numbers, you're a numbers guy. So how's your year going?
It's funny because I just did my first quarter analytics financially, and I think I'm literally $300 ahead of first quarter 2023. So
congrats!
Can't complain about that.
Being ahead is always a plus. Always a plus. And myself as well. And I'm just I'm ecstatic that I got paid already from the government. So that's good. I'm going to reinvest that in my business. But I love talking numbers. Anybody that ever has spoken with me for any length of time knows that I love talking real numbers, like real money. So I thought it would be good to talk about real money, because so many times I have students who just get into this industry and, they get that first job where somebody's interested in their voice, and then they panic and they say, oh my God, they've come back to me and they want to know what I'll charge for this job. And I thought we should let's talk about that. Let's talk about those numbers. How do people come up with those numbers?
Right. It's funny because we could just say, well, just go look at the SAG-AFTRA contract if you're union, or go look at the Global Voice Acting website if you're non-union, and this will be the world's shortest podcast episode.
There you go. That's
but
it. GVAA rate guide and SAG-AFTRA.
And you're done. But
you
as you well know, it's a lot more complicated than that. But I want to do a little bit of myth busting real quick, is that a lot of voice actors coming into the industry think hierarchical. They think vertical, as in, since they're just entering the voiceover industry, they should get paid the lowest, and the people who have been in here the longest should get paid the highest. And that is not necessarily true.
Right.
I mean, if there's one thing I've learned in the 25 plus years I've been doing this, is that the last gig I got isn't always the worst paying gig I've got, and then the next gig I've got isn't always the best paying gig that I've got.
Right.
And there's so many things to talk about on this.
It just does, right? I mean, before the rate guides, I think there was always SAG-AFTRA, but SAG-AFTRA mostly concentrated on, things that were national, and broadcast, right? And so national, regional, local, anything that was broadcast. So what was a girl to do back in, the early years when I was there trying to figure out, what do I charge? And literally it set myself into a panic. And I always, Tom, had to pretty much just kind of wing it. And guess what? I think that that's even still true today. Now we have guides that we can look at as benchmarks, but in reality, every job is absolutely different, especially when you're talking non-broadcast.
Yes. So, I mean, that's a great way to parse the conversation, is talking about broadcast rates versus non-broadcast rates. Now, so broadcast rates, radio, TV, television, cable, internet, streaming, right? Everything, all the front-facing stuff where there's going to be a session fee, which is how much you get paid to record the voiceover audio files, and then the usage fee, which is how much you get paid for giving license, because you're literally licensing your voice to the voice seekers for them to use your audio files in a certain period of time and in a certain area.
Yep, absolutely.
Right? So that's broadcast in the broadest sense, for lack of a better term. And it's just giving your listeners that basic explanation, that's what sets up this avalanche of other questions, is how big of a market, how many listeners, how long, are you getting paid for?
Where?
So, right. And where? Yeah. So it's in simplest terms, the more listeners or viewers, the more you get paid. And the longer that they're going to air this spot on whatever medium they decide, the more you get paid.
Right.
So the question is, where do you start? where do you start with that? So actually, that leads me to a question. Ann, do you have like a turning on the lights fee? Do you have a base studio
Yes,
session
I absolutely
fee?
do. For me to step into the studio, I have a certain fee,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of my work is non-broadcast. So if I am doing any work that's broadcast, typically that's either handled by my agent,
Mm-hmm.
right, who is negotiating that for me, which is why it's awesome to have agents because they handle that, and they're
Yes.
always fighting for the most part. If you've got a good agent, for your best interests,
Mm-hmm.
and so if it's not an agent fighting right for the rates, then I have to go to a rate guide to start somewhere and figure out what that is. But for non-broadcast, absolutely, I have a rate for stepping into my studio. And that is my studio session fee, which,
Right.
you know, I try to equate everything non-broadcast to the same equivalent on the broadcast side, because these days with synthetic voices, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure that nobody's going to be using my voice for a purpose that it wasn't intended for. And
Mm-hmm.
so I will actually put, and I'm probably getting ahead of myself, on my non-broadcast, I will put an actual length of time. Whereas previously, this was not something, you know, we talked about in perpetuity in another episode, but I want to absolutely address that for non-broadcast. You know, typically it was you gave somebody a rate for, you know, usage of that file, and it was forever.
Mm-hmm.
And now with synthetic voices and the fear of maybe getting our voices, you know, stolen or used for purposes other than intended, I now put in, for non-broadcast, I put in a length of time that they can use that for
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
as a safeguard.
right. And for certain things, I mean, there's explainers and corporate and e-learning and stuff like that. Most of that stuff isn't evergreen anyway.
Yeah.
Because like an explainer video, for example,
Yep.
the company's branding may change. The name of the company
The product
may
might change.
The product, the service, the widget may change. So they're going to need a new video, explainer video. If they have just like one explainer video, which is parked on their website and their social media channels, just saying, we are this company, this is what we do. You know, in 2-3 years, maybe 5 at most, they're going to need a new video. Now, and they may go to you and they may go to somebody else. But, you know, when you see non-broadcast in perpetuity, exactly. You want to be smart about it. You want to give it some form of shelf life. And that's a big part of this conversation, Ann, is how do you communicate this? How do you educate your clients by explaining, like, look, in a few years, you're going to need a new one of these anyway. Because I've noticed that for like non-broadcast, most of them want it in perpetuity, not because they want to synthesize your voice or because they want to hose you financially. It's just because they just don't want to be bothered. They just want to like do this and it's done and it's there and now they can go focus on other things.
Yeah, they say that it's theirs.
And they say it's theirs. But for non-broadcast genres, there's a whole bunch of different ways to charge. You know, sometimes you charge by the finished minute. If it's an audiobook, you charge by the finished hour. If it's long-form e-learning modules, you can get paid by the word. Exactly. I mean, those are the big ones. There used to be per page, but I don't remember the last time I got paid per page.
I don't. And you know what? I'll be completely honest, Tom. I don't remember the last time I quoted an e-learning module on a per word basis, because most of the companies or most of the people that I'm working with that are not, I'm not on a roster that is paying on a per word basis. Or working with an instructional e-learning company that usually is on a per word basis. Whenever I get e-learning clients, I always price them on a per hour, per finished hour basis. And I get paid the same for e-learning as I do for corporate, pretty much.
Yeah, they're both they're informational, non-broadcast.
Yep.
So in the broadest brushstrokes, they're pretty much the same. Genre-wise, with the exception that e-learning is usually used to train students and new employees, and corporate is for internal communications, like an HR video or a memo or here's how you pick your employee benefits and stuff like that.
Or even a corporate narration video. That's what I meant. Not just corporate training and e-learning to me is the same. Do you know what I mean? Corporate training and academic e-learning rates are the same to me, except most educational institutions can't afford what a company can.
Right.
Right. It's harder for them to get the money. But I think one thing that I want to really emphatically emphatically tell the bosses out there that are just beginning for non-broadcast is that really every job is unique. And we don't always have a rate guide to go to. And it's up to you as a business person to understand, what would be an acceptable market rate for that, and price it accordingly to that, and also know your worth, because again, like you had mentioned before, you think that just because you're newer you should charge less, and that is probably not the way I would be thinking about it at all as a new person into the industry, because you're being paid for your voice, right? You're being paid for your voice. You can get just as much as I can or Tom can for that voice. It is your business.
Right. Here's the thing about that is that a lot of my students immediately devalue themselves.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't do that to yourself, because think about it on the other side of the equation, is that if you're a voice seeker, do you care how long the voice actors have been doing voiceover? Really? I mean, in the abstract, well, of course, we would like an experienced narrator.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to the audition, within 2-3 seconds, either they like you or you don't. It doesn't matter how long you've been doing voiceover. Now, there is obviously a correlation between the ability to tell a story effectively and how long you've been doing this.
Agreed.
Sure. But ultimately, if you've got quality training from Anne and a quality demo, which, and that demo is submitted, and, you've been trained by Anne to audition effectively for projects, I'd say 95% of the time, it's a level playing field, regardless of how long you've been in the industry.
And I agree with you there. Completely agree with you.
So you take that data point and then you extrapolate that. Well, if that's the case, then that means everybody should get paid the same. Who's auditioning for that? Because if one of my students auditions for an e-learning project and I audition for an e-learning project, if I book it, I shouldn't necessarily get paid more than they should.
Completely agree with that. Again, they're paying for the voice. They're not necessarily paying for the experience. However, in dealing with the client, your level of experience might have a part in it, because after you get the job, in order to maybe keep the job or have the person keep coming back, that's where your experience and customer service comes into play.
Okay.
And that's where I feel that you can command, and again, you can command just as much as if you can give them a good experience.
Right. This is what I tell my students, is that your talent will book you the first gig with a client. Your project management skills will book you the next gig with the same client. Because if me and a student are auditioning for the same gig and they book it, great. They should get the same that I get. But then they'd better deliver the goods. Communicate the retake policy, understand how to use their DAW, understand how to edit and deliver the audio files, being able to take direction if it's a live setting. Those are skills that, yes, there is a correlation between your experience level and the ability to execute good project management. But if you work with Anne or if you work with myself, part of our jobs is to teach you that and how to be able to be professional and communicate effectively and do all those things. Because it's not just getting the first gig, it's getting the next gig and the next gig and the next gig without auditioning.
Exactly. And it's funny because it reminds me of a conversation I had in my Voices in Podcasting Clubhouse the other day with Jody Kringle and Cheryl Halling, where we got into this we got into this discussion about acting, right? Because a lot of coaches these days will say it's more important now more than ever to have your acting skills so that you can separate yourself from the synthetic voices. And Jody said, I don't know if I'm completely convinced about that, because in reality, it also has to do with your customer service. And I'm like, you've got to get the gig first, right? Which is your auditioning talents and your performance talents and your acting talents are going to get you the gig. Then what's going to help you keep it is going to be then your that customer service, that business aspect that you just mentioned, in order to keep them coming back, and then commanding that good rate, moving forward.
Yeah, it's more than just, and that's when it comes into, so for the audition, to book the audition, it's about your talent and your storytelling ability. After that, it's about your ability to manage the project effectively. Because also, if you can demonstrate that you can deliver the goods and do it quickly and do it right, then you're in a better position to command higher rates. Or you're in a position to just get more bookings without having to audition for this end client that you got that initial gig with, and other end clients at this production company or recording studio or ad agency or marketing firm or political production company or explainer production company has. They're like, yeah, you work with Ann. Ann delivered the goods on this series of explainer videos. She can do that for you and your series of explainer videos too. So it's not just about getting as much as you can for the project in question. It's about delivering the goods so you can get paid over and over and over again.
Aren't those the best jobs?
Well, we all want regular clients. Like everybody in every part of the country.
Those are the ones you don't have to audition. If you don't have to audition for them.
Yes.
That's like, that just takes out a complete amount of, steps. And it's funny because I think for me and for my business, right, I'm always telling people you always have to cultivate new leads because, if you've been in the business for a long time, undoubtedly you'll probably have repeat clients, right? Tom, you must have lots and lots and lots of repeat clients. Many repeat clients. And me too, and I'm grateful for them, but I always have to be cultivating the new clients as well. And that means I have to really continually assess and understand rates and what I should charge and understand my worth in the current market. My friend Adam Werner, audiobook narrator, fellow FAFCON attendee, he taught me about client churn, which is every quarter I look at all of the voiceover gigs that I booked and all the clients that I worked with and the genres that I booked them, the type of genres that I booked, and how I got the gig, whether it was through my representation, whether it was through an online casting site, and where it was through my self-marketing strategies. And I looked to see how many new clients did I gain. And I keep a very close eye on how many new clients I'm getting, because if I'm getting a regular stream of new clients, that means my marketing strategies are working well. And your marketing strategies is your self-marketing strategy, cold calls, cold emails, indirect marketing, social media, blogging, whatever. But also, am I just auditioning better through my representation? Absolutely. Am I auditioning better through my online casting sites? Because clients are just going to naturally go away. They're going to retire. They're going to go out of business. They're going to change their business model. They're going to hire their nephew who wants to do musical theater to do their phone greets, and now you're out. AI is going to replace, and already has replaced some of us voice actors for certain clients. That's just going to naturally happen. So you always want to keep the till full. Absolutely.
And making sure that you understand what you're worth in today's current landscape on a per word, per finished minute, per finished hour, per studio hour. You always want to keep an eye on that. So how do you keep an eye on that, Ann? How do you keep an eye on current rates? Like, what are your go-tos? What are your habits?
Oh, my current rates, my current rates I actually make sure that I check the rate guides frequently, because they're continually being updated by people more than me out in the industry. Back in the day, I was a core contributor to the GVAA rate guide, and I think you were too, Tom, based on the rates that I had devised for all my non-broadcast, like e-learning and corporate and telephony and medical, and those were the rates that I helped with on that rate guide. I make sure that I'm continually assessing those rate guides, but I'm also assessing the market. I work in the market. And so I know I do a lot of research on the client, and I try to understand, like, where else could they be going for potential business or another voice, and how can I remain competitive with that voice? And so it's how do I keep myself current? It's continual research, really, and assessment with the rate guide. And some of it, honestly, is just pulling it out of the air. That is really what happens. Sometimes you just got to, because it's nowhere to be found, and you just have to use your judgment, your best judgment. Always use your negotiation 101 tactics on, asking what is the budget. That's like the most important first question I think you can ask a client.
Yeah.
Do they have a budget? And if they have a budget, can you work within that?
Right. My go-tos is looking at my agent casting notices and looking at my online casting site casting notices.
Yes.
That's, if you
that's a market assessment.
Market assessment.
Yep.
So, yeah. So, and what Ann does and what I do, you should be doing both of those.
Yes.
You should be doing both of those, because when you get a casting notice from your representation, it's been pre-negotiated. They've already gone through the rigmarole of negotiating with that particular client. So what you get is most likely the finished product of what the actual rate is going to be for that project. So that will let you know, because along with that casting notice, in addition to the rates, is the specs, the session fee, the usage fee, the market, the exclusivity and conflicts, and the rate of usage, how long it's going to be used for. So you can use that to greatly inform your broadcast rate sheets. And then for non-broadcast, looking at the online casting sites and just noticing trends in e-learning versus corporate versus explainer versus telephony versus medical versus, voice
and
of
in
God.
order to do that, do you need to be a member, Tom? I know, because some of them will post job rates without you necessarily actually being a paid member, if you're a free member. But I believe you've got to be a paid member to get that information.
For places like Voice 123, I believe you won't have access to the casting notices unless you're on the tier, because the only way you'll get them is if they make it to your inbox, and the only way it makes it to your inbox is having a subscription tier, unless you have a free site, a free membership, and some casting notices come in.
Yeah, Voices. And some say, here's the jobs you missed.
Right. Voices.
And here's the money.
I think you can run searches, but you can't audition unless you're a paid member. But there's other places to go. I mean, you could look at Backstage and Badalgo and Casting Call Club, even Twitter. There's now Casting Call Club and Twitter, there tend to be lower no pay jobs, which is why a lot of voice actors earlier in their journey go to Casting Call Club, because it gives themselves a great opportunity to kind of develop their audition skills, their rate negotiation skills, build up their portfolio, resume, genre awareness, and confidence, all of which are extremely, extremely important things. But if you're able to hit the ground running and you have more resources at your disposal, I've got a pay-to-play site like a Voice 123 or voices.com, you can get a much better idea of what current trends in the rate structure is for voiceover gigs.
And what's so interesting, what I'm hearing from you, interestingly enough, is not just, understanding the rate guide and then, understanding the principles of negotiation and what you're worth, but also your audition techniques, right? Auditioning techniques can really be something that it's a first impression, right? And so if you're looking to, command a particular rate for a job, the fact, and even if you don't get a job that you've auditioned for, right? You're submitting auditions into your agent and you're nailing them, time after time after time, or you're nailing the auditions in the pay to play, right? You're getting consistent in people's minds.
Yes.
And that is building your value. So think about, and it's interesting because when people come to me and they say, I want to get a corporate demo, or I want to get a medical demo, or I want an e-learning demo, I've over the years evolved into the type of coach that is really coaching how to do the audition to get the gig first.
Yes.
Because honestly, we all can do that read that's a really pleasant, nice read. That's reading the words, but it takes acting skills to really tell the story. And so I really work on building up students' storytelling skills and acting skills, and that I feel is going to command you the higher rate.
Yes, I've got some numbers for you. I know you love your numbers.
I do.
Okay.
Tell me.
In 2019, I auditioned roughly 400 times.
Okay.
1% of my voiceover revenue came from representation. 18% came from casting sites. I wasn't on any paid casting sites back then. Fast forward to all of 2019, 21, 2, 3. So 5 years later, 2023, I did 1,854 auditions. My online casting site revenue percentage grew from 18% to 50%.
Wow. That's incredible.
My representation revenue percentage went from 1% to 12%.
Wow.
And my
That's
overall
incredible.
revenue increased by 20%.
And now what would you say that was due to then?
Auditioning.
Right?
Yes.
And auditioning skills.
Getting my reps in on specifically Voice 123, and you can hear if you haven't watched our casting site VO Boss video, go check that
Yes.
out. You'll hear me talk about Voice 123 in severe detail about my voiceover journey. The fact that I was auditioning so much on pay-to-play sites, I was just getting better at auditioning.
Yeah.
Which meant when I was getting those agent and manager-driven auditions, I was just getting better at auditioning there too. And as a result, I booked more gigs and I booked better gigs.
Yeah.
So if nothing else, don't put all of these things into separate buckets or silos, pass judgment on them and ignore them, or covet one and ignore the other. It's through data and money. I've shown that the online casting site portal and the representation portal are clearly linked. There was clearly a synergistic relationship between the quality and quantity of my auditions on Voice 123 and the quality and quantity of my audition efforts through my agents and managers.
I love that you're backing it up with the numbers because, I mean, it's so easy, right, to point the finger and say, oh, well, pay-to-plays suck. Or, there's too many people on the pay-to-plays. Or the pay-to-plays are bottom feeders. And so, therefore, I didn't get to the audition on time, which, that plays a certain part in it. But also, it could be like my agent keeps sending me the same auditions to everyone. So it's easy to point the finger and lay blame, but I'll tell you what, a lot of times if you can increase your audition skills, you can increase your net worth, you can increase the rate that you can ask for.
Yeah.
And even if, but you've got to be getting, it's kind of like this, what came first, the chicken or the egg? The audition or the value, right, that you can charge your potential client. I mean, honestly, it just goes hand in hand. If you are a better actor, if you are a better auditioner, and that's going to require an investment typically in working hard with maybe a performance coach that can give you good feedback. Because if you're like, I don't know what's happening, the pay-to-play suck these days, I'm not getting any work, or my agent is not getting me work, and I hate it when people blame their agents for not getting them work.
Right.
It really is up to you to put in that investment into your business so that you can audition better and then command those better rates.
Absolutely. Yeah. So creating a rate sheet from scratch or using the SAG-AFTRA guidelines or using the Global Voice Acting Academy rate guides is an important thing to understand what is a voice actor's worth in relation to the genres and the broadcast versus non-broadcast market. But I'll be honest. I mean, yes, I've had rate sheets that I built from scratch and, talked to other voice actors over the past 15, 20 years. But these days, I don't really look at it anymore. Yeah. I just kind of know through repetition what I'm worth, what the genre's worth, what the gig is worth based on the broadcast or non-broadcast, usage. Is it going to just be in a museum exhibition, or is it going to be on a corporate website that has 10,000 employees? After a while, you just kind of get the hang of it, but that does not help our bosses who are early in their voiceover journey. This is true. Bookmark that SAG-AFTRA rates. Bookmark that GVAA. Have your own little Google Doc. Keep track of the agent auditions that you get if you have representation. Keep track of the online casting site audition rates. Just start to note them. Just make a little simple spreadsheet. Genre, rate, terms.
I did that right in the beginning of my career. It was like, audition, where did the audition come from? Did I book the gig? What was the price? And so literally that can really help establish for you rates to charge, and just make sure that you're keeping up with those rates and really doing some market research. And, again, if you're new to the industry, those rate guides, use them as a guide only. That doesn't mean that they're the be-all, end-all of what you, as a business owner, should charge.
Right.
But I would say, rather than going to the lower number because you want the client, right, make sure that number is well within what you are worth.
Right.
And just because you started, just recently, doesn't mean that you can't command the same rate that you can, that Tom and I can.
Right. And here's the thing about that is that the lowest bid doesn't always book
win
the gig. It does not always.
Oh, gosh.
It does not always.
I
win.
get nervous when I buy things that are too cheap. Then I'm
Right.
like, oh, I don't know about the quality of this.
Yeah, there may be a lack of quality. I mean, think of it this way. Like my wife and I were just in the big Macy's flagship store a couple of weeks ago to see the Macy's Flower Show. And we walked through the departments, and you see, like on the top floor of Macy's is the luggage, and you've got 5 different suitcase sets, and like, the first few are worth $100, and then the last one is worth $400. And what are the ones people are going to look at first? They're going to be like, why is this one $400? What makes it more? What is it that gives it more value than the other ones?
Exactly. And I'll tell you something too. Sometimes, I can't believe I'm going to admit this, like on the air, Tom. As a female, when I go shopping, clothes shopping, right, and they have huge sales when there's like bins of clothing that are slashed 70%. Sometimes that's almost too overwhelming and exhausting. And now that the prices have been slashed so much, I'm like, I don't know, people have been handling these clothes. I don't know, are they not in fashion anymore? I question everything.
Yeah,
right?
it's like, why are they in the bin in the first place?
Oh my gosh, they're so low. Yeah.
Right.
Why are there so many of those in the bin of the same like style? Is that because it's not in style? And then I question all the other aspects of it, the quality. Is it in style? Is it, and so literally I will, to save my brain the overwhelm of low prices, I will go to the stuff that is priced higher, and it's usually presented much nicer, right? And it's less overwhelming. Think about your voiceover, right? Think about your voice and presenting it in a way that you are worthy, right? You are worthy of commanding that price. You are worthy of the elegant luxury brand of that voice, right? And people paying that money. There is such an attraction to that for a lot of buyers. It's like it's what are they? It's the psychological aspect.
Yeah. Look, VO bosses, if you have gotten your training, if you have gotten your demos, if you've built your website, if you have your home recording studio set up, and you have a rate sheet built, you're worth it.
Yeah.
You are worth it. You are worth it, and you are worthy.
Yes, absolutely. Good stuff. We could go on and on and on about this, but I find, Tom, when I talk to you, like our podcasts run a little bit long because you're so we have so much to talk about. You're so easy to talk to.
Oh, you too.
Thank you, Tom, for the wonderful sensible business head that you have. I absolutely love our sessions together.
Me
and
too.
Bosses, I'm going to give a great big shout out to our sponsor, IPDTL, that allows me to connect with Tom and talk numbers, because I love to do that, and all sorts of other wonderful business things that we should know as voice actors. You can find out more at ipdtl.com. Tom, thanks again so much. I just love our sessions together, and I can't wait till our next one. So.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me back.
Bosses, have a great week. We'll see you next week. Bye.